When I was 14, I got the privilege to go overseas to Australia and New Zealand as a student ambassador. We went to several different places and learned about the people, culture, and history of the countries firsthand. There were a lot of memorable moments during that trip, but there was one in particular that stands out far beyond the rest. My gift from a ghost. While in New Zealand, our group stayed at a nature preserve that was built around a ranch that was founded in the early 1900s. During the day, we participated in activities, but at night we were allowed to wander about the grounds, so long as we were accompanied by one of the workers. On one such night, we walked past the home of the original family that built the place, a 2-story wooden manor house. It was left in a sort of suspended decay, kept repaired enough to keep it from falling down, but not enough that you could do anything with it. The worker that was with us explained that there had been several reports of haunted activity inside, and dared any of us to go inside and see for ourselves. Taking it as a bit of a challenge, a group of us, myself included, went inside to see if anything would happen. The inside of the home was dark and dreary. The front door led into a foyer, which had a staircase on either side leading up to the walkway on the second floor. There was also another doorway at the other end of the room, though the doors were closed, and locked tight with a chain and padlock. A few of us turned on flashlights and we took a look around. There wasn't too much to look at, just some creaky floorboards and the remains of walls and stairs. For most of us, that was enough to lose interest and head back outside. But not for me. Before long, I had the place to myself. I stayed still for a few moments, listening to see if anything strange would occur. It didn't take long, as soon after I could hear a creaking above me, as if someone were slowly walking across the overhang above. I laughed softly, thinking the workers had played a prank on us. "Okay, you got me. You can come out now," I said, pointing my flashlight up to see who was trying to sneak up on me. But there was nobody there. The creaking started again, this time coming from the staircase. I froze, unsure of what to do until I heard a very odd sound. The sound of something very small landing behind me. I quickly turned around, my light at the ground as I searched for the source of the noise. There, no more than a few feet in front of me, was a bracelet. It was silver, at least in color, and made of several overlapping rings linking together multiple times, held together by a simple clasp. Without thinking, I immediately picked it up. What happened next was by far the scariest thing I've ever experienced. I heard a voice.
"Hello?"
It called out to me. The voice was that of a young girl, very young by what I can remember. It was quiet, and I couldn't help but think she sounded lonely. I looked for the owner of the voice, again turning up empty. I quickly backed up to leave, but I stumbled and fell.
"Goodbye."
She spoke again, this time right next to my ear. Panicked, I bolted out of the house and back outside, the bracelet still clutched in my hand. Before we left, I talked more with the staff to learn about the family that founded the ranch. It turned out that the family had 2 children, a son and a daughter. My best guess is that I reminded her of her brother, and she wanted me to have the bracelet. I kept it for several years, and it served as a sort of good luck charm. One day, though, I felt that it was time to let it go, and let her pass on. So, being unable to return where I found it, I did the next best thing. After wrapping it up nicely and saying a few nice words, I tossed it into the Mississippi River in a symbolic burial at sea. I like to think that's put her at peace.
I was homeschooled as a child. My parents didn't want to expose me to the somewhat shitty public school near our house, so my mother ended up teaching me from kindergarten through the 4th grade. I wasn't particularly lonely, being the younger sibling to a kind sister. I also got to hang out with some of the neighborhood kids every now and again. And I had a great imaginary friend. He was a tall, black blob with a blank paper-white face. Being the uncreative kid I was, I ended up naming him No-Face. Now, I first saw No-Face when I was about 5 or 6 or something. He just kinda showed up one day when I was in the playroom. I remember he was a pretty quiet guy. I don't think he actually ever spoke to me at all, come to think of it. But He was always there to comfort me when I was upset. I don't really remember playing with him all that much, but he would follow me around the house, look at my toys, and sit in my closet when I slept at night. My parents loved when I talked about No Face. Apparently I'd go on and on about stories he'd helped me come up with and about how much fun he was to be around. They probably thought it was good for me to have come up with someone like him for when my sister didn't want to talk or be near me or something like that. The strange thing, though, is that I never drew pictures of him like other kids generally did with their imaginary friends, and I'd actually refuse to draw him if someone asked. I've always been an artistic kid who loved my crayons, so this was pretty weird to my parents, but they let it go after a while, though. I kept talking about and playing with No Face until I was around 10. I had friends besides my sister by now, but nobody faulted me for mentioning him in conversation from time to time. The other kids I'd play with would call me weird or strange when I tried telling them about him, but I didn't care. No Face was always my closest friend besides my sister, and I thought nothing would ever change that. One day, when my sister was tired of spending time with me and was down playing with Legos or something in the TV room, I was talking to No Face in my parents' bedroom. I think I was telling him about one of my new dolls when my mom called me down to eat lunch. I told him that he should follow me so I could keep talking to him, but he just shook his head and slunk back towards the closet. He never really liked being around my parents, but I remember really wanting to keep talking to him. After begging, he finally agreed to follow me to the kitchen, and I met up with my sister, who would come up to get me for taking too long, and started telling her about the story I'd made up for my doll, too. I don't think I'll ever forget the look of shock on my mother's face when she turned around to give us our food that day. We asked her what was wrong, but she just looked a bit confused before telling us that she thought she'd seen someone standing behind us in the hallway. She didn't look any happier when I explained that it was just No Face. After that, I still saw him from time to time, and so did my parents. But nothing really notable happened. I started school, and I didn't really see him a lot after that. My mom apparently saw him one day when I was away, but then we moved, and he didn't come with me.
So I had to have been about 17 when this happened. A couple of details are hazy, but then again, they were details that didn't really matter in the first place. It was nearing Halloween, so of course this was the best time for horror movies at the nearby theater. My then girlfriend at the time and I had just finished seeing one of the Paranormal Activity movies, and we were starting to head back to her place to drop her off. We were still in high school, so curfews and all of that fun stuff were still a thing that we had to follow. However, part of the way through the drive, we started arguing. Now, she and I didn't really have a stable relationship, which resulted in us arguing a lot, so this was nothing new. But this got to the point to where she asked us to pull into a church parking lot near her neighborhood. There, the conversation started turning as we began to mimic and poke fun at each other. Every time there was a dark moment in our relationship, there was a brighter one not far off, and I feel like that's what kept the relationship going for the amount of time it went. But we're not here to talk about my love life. We're here to talk about what happened after the argument. As our voices laughed to silence, another noise broke through the swift voice of speechlessness. Tires screeched as a wide charcoal SUV pulled up into the parking lot next to us. Time began to slow down in my mind as I heard another set of tires screech to my left, and I turned to see a white car on my side. I was stunned, unsure of how to even react to such a scenario. My ex-girlfriend was keeping an eye on the SUV, and after what felt like an eternity of silence, she said one word.
Drive.
I turned to her in confusion before I noticed a figure in a white wife-beater and jeans start to leave the driver's side of the SUV. The door behind him opening up with someone else in a hoodie. I was taking Taekwondo at the time, and my black belt made me believe I could take at least one guy, but when I realized I'd have more than one opponent, my best bet was to get the hell out of there.
Drive!
My ex screamed. I instantly slammed my keys into the ignition, turned them, pulled into reverse, and peeled out in record time. As I tore out of the parking lot into the neighborhood, I took one last look at the church and noticed 4 guys getting back into the SUV. I instinctively gulped as I noticed the white car was no longer there. Now, I'm a fairly safe driver. Always have been, always will be. The most I maybe do is speed every so often. So, it's instinctual for me to tell you to never ever do what I did, because I got unbelievably lucky. Upon noticing the white car's absence, I did the best tactic I could think of to get away. I twisted the knob on my car's lights and turned them all off. Now driving black on black, I literally could not see a thing. I was cruising completely blind. It was off of instinct and muscle memory that I was able to get back onto the path to my old girlfriend's house. And once we were there, we parked in her cul-de-sac and waited. 5 minutes passed like hours as we sat there shivering. However, we figured the coast was clear, and I walked her into her house before getting back into my car and driving the hell home. I have no idea what they wanted that night. I have no idea what was going to happen if we even stayed for another second. And the thought of that terrifies me to this day. Hello there, my name is Connor. I helped organize this whole Halloween special, and I hope you enjoyed, sincerely. This was something new that we wanted to do. We've seen various other YouTubers do it before, so we wanted to kind of dip our toe in the water and see the reaction. Make sure you check out plenty of the really great voice actors that were featured in this. We had Conker Yates, who told her story about the imaginary friend. We had the Jable, who told his story about the ghost bracelet. I ended up telling the story about me almost getting mugged. And then we had Allison, who voiced a couple of the various characters in the stories. So the ghost girl and the girlfriend were both characters that she voiced. Definitely feel free to check them out. They're also part of this group, so if you stick around, you'll be seeing a lot more of them. With all that said, this was, like I said, something completely new, and if you would like to hear more of this from us, definitely feel free to comment. We'd love to hear if you want more. If not, it's up to you. With all that said, thank you for listening, and happy Halloween.